or an AI, certainly a race China wants to win. We don't want to do anything that gives China those benefits. So I think that a national security first approach is best when dealing with any type of technology, hardware or software coming from China.
Okay, so let's go to the end users, but I want to step first on what you're talking about with journalists, because it's not just journalists. I know a lot of kids that had gone to the service academies or were becoming ROTC, midshipmen and cadets, and they told them, midshipmen and cadets, they told them that time, you are not allowed to have TikTok on your phone. The rest of the college kids like, TikTok's great. They're like, nope, you are not allowed to have TikTok, because they were concerned about what they could do to track to see what you were doing. Do we not understand that? Has that not made the news? Do people not get, well, if I have that on there and the way that they can draw that information out, they can pretty much get to know everything about you and see what you're doing, especially if you're in a national security position?
I absolutely agree that these types of stories should be made more available and covered more broadly. And certainly when I was in government, I didn't have TikTok on my phone. And certainly here in my current job at the Heritage Foundation, I'm not putting TikTok on that phone.
I don't
and
have
at home.
TikTok on my phone. I tell my
there
people,
you go.
I tell people all the time, oh, you should look at TikTok. I said, sorry, I'm not a communist.
There you go. I'm not letting TikTok into my home or my workplace or wherever. It's certainly for the exact stories that you're mentioning there. I do not, especially on national security grounds, I do not want to give my greatest adversary a piece of spyware that can sit in my pocket for them to have some ability to track me. So, of course, there has, under the administration, there's been an effort to adjust some of this, the new ownership group, different allocation and policies on where data is being stored. A lot of that's been kept pretty tight. But I think the safest practice, whether you're in a national security role or just you care about not being indoctrinated by communist literature or Chinese algorithms here, is to keep that type of software away from you, whether it's yourself, your family, your kids, your work. That, to me, I think is the safest and best approach to have.
And I don't know if people understand this. So let me share with everybody. And Andrew, tell me whether I'm off base here. You think about your smartphone listens to everything you do. It collects the metadata. That metadata gets transferred. And this is over the top. We all know this. If you're sitting here and I got my iPhone sitting here next to me, when I do the show, I wait, I get done, I look at my phone afterwards. All of a sudden, I'm inundated with ads of things that I talked about, topics I talked about, subjects I talked about for the last 4 hours on the radio. That all shows up in my feed on my social media and on my ads and my banner ads. It's listening. It knows what I'm saying. Everybody sees that on your phone just with your Facebook and your Instagram feed. Now think if you have something as diabolical as TikTok with the Chinese Communist Party in charge of that algorithm, what do you think you're getting?
Well, you're certainly getting a lot of trouble, safe to say. And I think you raise a very important point here about effectively the risk that big tech brings. And so understandably, here in the U.S., we do certainly major big tech problems with how our data is used, how we find out after the fact how our data has been used or sold or it's been stolen, et cetera. And certainly I've experienced that too, or all of a sudden, if I'm going on one app and then I turn on another and poof, I now have all these TV ads or some type of electronic ads. It's all connected there. But here's a key difference and how it ties back to China here. In the U.S. with our corporations, there's many different laws in place, different elements of transparency, and the corporations here are driven primarily by profit for shareholders. There's a different public-private divide here in the U.S. It's not perfect, of course. There's still issues that we work on policy-wise here. But when you think about China, we go back to the national intelligence law that was passed just about, say, 2017, in which every single entity and company in China must be required by Chinese law to give data or information or intelligence to the Chinese Communist Party at a moment's notice. Otherwise, they'll face severe consequences. In other words, the party can have them disbanded and take over whatever they so choose. So the implication here is, say, if you're using like a Facebook or an Instagram, yes, you have a much better idea of what you're consenting to than, say, with a Chinese app or firm, in which not only does the company not have to be as transparent, or they'll use your data in a more manipulative manner, but it could also go to the hands of the Chinese Communist Party if it so chooses at any moment's notice. So a very different and more dangerous operating environment with Chinese companies and products than, say, American companies and products.
So let me just make sure I have this right. I use, let's say, X, Elon Musk. It goes to Elon Musk's company, but he doesn't share that with the federal government. I use TikTok. because ByteDance has ownership and direct ties to the Chinese Communist Party, I use TikTok. ByteDance is their parent company, and they have to surrender it whenever they ask my information to the Chinese government, ostensibly the Chinese Communist Party. It would be like if Elon Musk was forced to give his information to the national security folks in the Pentagon.
Well, you're right. You're making that is how we need to think about these Chinese apps here, and which say in the U.S. private companies they have a lot more protections. There's a firmer legal system. For all the flaws here, the American model is much better. For all the flaws, it is much better. There are more protections. There are more consumer protections, also more company protections, and there's different transparency and legal processes available if there's an issue. You go to China, you don't have that same operating environment. Everything runs through the party. The Chinese Communist Party dictates what is acceptable, what is not, what can be subsidized, what products can be negotiated about. And so certainly there's a big focus on TikTok. And of course, the administration has tried to seemingly address some of those issues. And we do know there is this new this different structure in place, different U.S. investors. But also what I'm thinking about now is, say, DeepSeek, for example. If you think about AI, obviously we have our chat GPTs, our Claudes, our Copilots, you name it, or Groks. But in China, a very notable one, among the many, but a notable one is DeepSeek, in which when DeepSeek was first put together, they have been trying to steal American AI products and technology and research, so they're once again trying to steal. But B, if you ask it questions about Taiwan, for example, the product immediately stops, it stops answering the question, or it always just puts out Chinese propaganda that is approved by the party. It will never, ever talk about the Taiwan question. It'll only regurgitate pro and support a Chinese Communist Party narrative. So as an example, when we think about Chinese technology here, you're not just getting a competitive product. You're getting a product that is designed to make you think a certain way, to support the party, and give you a complete lack of free information. It's a very dangerous environment with what China is doing.
All right, Andrew, we got 30 seconds. I know I stay away from TikTok. Are there any other apps out there that I need to be aware of to make sure that I don't have them on my phone?
Oh, certainly don't go to DeepSeek, any Chinese AI product that's going out there. You don't want them to get your data, as well as being fed propaganda from the Chinese Communist Party. Another thing to keep in mind, it's a little different than, say, apps, but Chinese electric vehicles, we know they want to enter that market. The cars may look cool, but they're very dangerous. They're a spy vehicle on wheels. And finally, robotics. China's trying to get robotics. You can get them on Amazon, I've seen, for $18,000. But other humanoid robotic units that China wants to get into the U.S., again, another just spy walking on wheels. So if it's China and technology, think carefully about what you want to do with your own choice, but be mindful if there's any better American alternative that could be safer and ideally a much better product too.
Folks, just remember those vacuums you have, those robot vacuums, actually map your house, and that data is actually sold in the United States to people that want to build a model of you so they could sell you things. Imagine what happens if it was China. Andrew, fascinating stuff. You got to come back on the show again.
I would love to. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks. Andrew Harding joining us from the Heritage Foundation. Something to think about this morning on Richmond's Morning News. All right, let's talk a little bit about you. And if you're out looking for a car right now, what are you looking for? Well, I want a great deal. Okay. I want people that are going to stand by this vehicle. Okay. I want people that I can trust. I want a relationship. I want to be able to go buy my car and not have someone promise me everything